What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. We have a lot to talk about today as Louisville and Pitt, they faced off against one another. Which team won and which team didn't in their two-game series? And how was the ACC North decided? Did Notre Dame come out on top? Or did Louisville force their way to victory and at least a tie atop of the ACC North? Also, we had some results in the Big Ten, which weren't really too surprising. We had some other results in the SEC, also not surprising, but we had some interesting results in the Sunbelt Conference. Yes, that's a thing. The Sunbelt Conference is something that we all need to keep an eye on, as the Sunbelt Conference West region is boiling down as Texas State and UT Arlington have a big first-place showdown with one another this week. Will the Bobcats stay in first place, or will UT Arlington have to showdown? And also, we have ourselves a sneaky good game in the Big 12. And we have Kentucky at Missouri, the top 10 showdown in the SEC. All that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we are live here with another edition of Set Point. Like I said, my name is Teran Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday evening. I really appreciate it. We are in episode 61 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's recap some of these matchups in the NCAA from last week. There weren't too many big-time matchups. There weren't anything that just popped out at me, but there was this one matchup that did pop out at me, and that was Louisville at Pitt, the battle of two top 10 teams and two teams in the ACC North. So the first matchup between Louisville and Pitt, the first set was very close, as Louisville and Pitt were back and forth with one another, just as I expected it. Pitt eventually got to 21st, but Louisville just was not going down without a fight. They were just making it tough on Pitt all game long. But eventually Pitt took the first set 26-24, which was a crucial first set, which actually, in my mind, proved to be the tipping point. The second set looked to be more of all Pitt, as Pitt just started strong and they didn't really let up on the lead. And by the way, set 1 featured 16 ties and 6 lead changes. There are only 8 ties and 3 lead changes in set number 2, as for the most part, Pitt just Pitt was just all over Louisville like flies on cowpucky, as they took set number 2, 25-21, and just like that, they were up 2-0. Pitt did not look like a number 10 ranked team, and Louisville didn't look like a number 6 ranked team. It looked like the exact flip-flop. So set 3 was also pretty tight, as Pitt was leading for the most part, but Louisville was just not going down, as they got contributions from Anna DeBeer and Iko Jones, as well as Claire Chahowski, and there were 12 ties in set number 3, but only 3 lead changes. Pitt looked determined to sweep the Cardinals of Louisville, and they did so, as Pitt won set number 3, 25-23, sweeping Pitt and pretty much keeping whatever little glimmer of hope they have in the ACC North, and also giving Notre Dame a slight lead in the ACC North region. So, looking at the box score of Louisville at Pitt, let's start with Pitt. Pitt was led by, surprisingly, Valeria Vasquez Gomez, who had 10 kills, 4 hitting errors, and 21 attempts for a hitting percentage of .286, which was some good stuff. Kayla Lund had 8 kills, but she had 7 hitting errors and 27 attempts for a hitting percentage of only 37. Chinaza Day had 9 kills, 4 errors, and 24 attempts for a hitting percentage of 208. That's pretty solid. And Chiamaka Nwokolo had 8 kills, no hitting errors, and 13 attempts for a hitting percentage of 615. Was pretty solid. The 6-2 defense of Pitt really did a number on Louisville as Lexus Akio and Kylie Levers, it's actually pronounced Levers, not Levers, had 27 and 11 assists together. And also, in terms of digs, Kayla Lund led the team in digs with 12, while Mariha Popovic had 9 digs, and Lexus Akio had 8 digs, and Valeria Vasquez Gomez had 7 digs. So that's pretty much the Pitt stats in a nutshell. One stat that really stood out to me, I'll be going over that in a little bit, but let's go to the Louisville stats. Louisville was led by Anna DeBeer, Aiko Jones, and Claire Chowsey, who each had 7 kills. Anna Stevenson had 5 kills, and Amaya Tillman had 6 kills. It is something to note that Chowsey had 6 hitting errors and 21 swings for only a hitting percentage of only 0.48, and Jones had 5 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 0.083, or 83 as I like to call it. So those numbers did kind of weigh down Louisville as a team, and the hitting percentages between both teams weren't really high, so yeah. And once again, I hate when this thing pops up. I'm sorry if you all got that little notification in your earbuds, so if it was just me, then disregard what I just said. Anyway, in terms of assists, Tori Dilfer led the 5-1 offense with 31 assists. In terms of digs, they were also led by Tori Dilfer, who had 9 digs. Lexus Hamilton had 8 digs, while Aiko Jones had 7 digs. Now, let's go over some of these statistics that stood out to me. In terms of blocks, Louisville had a whopping 14 blocks. Do you want to know how many Pitt had? Pitt had a whopping 7. Yet Pitt beat Louisville. How does a team that has 14 blocks, that doubles up the opponent, lose? How did Louisville let that one get away? I'll tell you why. They lost the points that truly mattered. They couldn't come up big in set 1 and set 3. If they take those sets, it's a whole different ball game. Volleyball is a game of momentum, and unfortunately, Pitt snagged that momentum from them. It's like, what are you doing, Louisville? That's not how you win a volleyball game. And again, this was kind of Louisville to me was kind of suspect coming into this game because their only wins have come against Boston College and Syracuse, both of which were a combined. I believe they were 3 and 11, and all those wins came from Syracuse. 4. I think they were 4 and. Yeah, I think they were 4 and 6 or something. Either way, it was under 500. Bottom line, it was under 500, and it was just unimpressive. I think 4 and 10. That was the record. So that was overly disappointing by Louisville, and this goes to show you that Louisville had no standout wins. They had no wins that said, "Hey, look at that! Louisville is a talented team. I think they could beat Pitt." Wrong. At least Pitt had the honor of beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Louisville couldn't even beat Notre Dame in their only matchup, which is not going to get made up, which really is disappointing. I really would have liked a part 2 between Notre Dame at Louisville. That, to me, is the decider for the ACC North. But unfortunately, we're not going to get that. We might get that next year, or in terms of the calendar year, next calendar year, because for those of you that don't know, the NCAA women's volleyball season continues through January all the way to April. So the volleyball season's not quite over yet. So it's far from over. So there's that. But overall, I knew Pitt was going to come out swinging because Pitt's a very good home team. Not a whole lot of teams could come out of Fitzgerald Fieldhouse and say they beat Pitt at Pitt. So I don't know. Louisville really disappointed. In terms of hitting percentage, Pitt was held to only 195, while Louisville had 188, which isn't bad. In terms of service aces, now this one stood out to me. Pitt had 7 service aces, while Louisville only had 3, which is kind of shocking. Both teams had 5 service errors, which kind of makes up for it. And like I said, the blocks were what really stood out to me. And the digs, Pitt won that matchup 40-37. I'm still just baffled on how Louisville had 14 blocks to Pitt's 7. Like, I know Pitt has doesn't have the tallest players, but they have some pretty good talent. Like, they have some good talented middles. Like, they have Sabrina Starks and Chiamaka Nwokolo as their middles, and some of those players do get up off the ground, so I don't know. Either way, it was just a really good win for Pitt, and I said it best on Twitter. Louisville's going to need to work a little harder if they want to beat Pitt on the road, because you want to be ACC champions or ACC regional champions, you got to beat some of the best, and they just didn't. All right, so now let's go to part 2 of Louisville at Pitt. So this one was rather different, as the first matchup, or the first set between Louisville at Pitt, Louisville actually came out swinging, as there were 15 ties and 6 lead changes, but in the end, Louisville took set 1, 26-24. Remember when I said volleyball is a game of momentum? Getting that first set was a momentum shifter to Louisville. And I'm just going to fair warning with all of you, all of these sets were very close. So, second set, Louisville never trailed, and there were no ties as Louisville put their foot on the gas. They kept Pitt in the match for the most part, but honestly, Louisville was able to take the second set 25-22, and just like that, Louisville was up 2-0 on Pitt. And for those of you that don't know, Louisville actually, or not Louisville, Pitt honestly had one of the longest home winning streaks in NCAA volleyball. I think there's only one other team that rivals that long winning streak, and that was Cal Poly. So it was a big surprise there, and I was quite impressed as they're up 2-0 on Pitt. Like, again, not many teams can say they can go to Pitt and win. Now, the third set was pretty much all Pitt, as Pitt never trailed, but there were only 2 ties. But in the end, Pitt took set number 3, 25-22, and the key in that matchup was breaking off an 8-0 run after, I believe it was tied at 4-4. So that was the key right there. And like I said, volleyball is a game of momentum, and Pitt definitely said that they had no intentions of losing. So and they knew they didn't want to lose at home in straight sets. So there was that. Now the fourth set was also tight. 11 ties, 6 lead changes. It looked like Pitt was going to force the fifth set, but then Louisville came roaring back off of the arm of Anna DeBeer and Aiko Jones. And in the end, it was a nail-biter, but Louisville took set 4, 25-23, and they took the match 3-1. More importantly, Louisville also snapped Pitt's 37 home match winning streak, which dated all the way back to, I believe it was 2016, 17, I want to say. Either way, yeah, it was October 22nd, 2017 when Pitt lost previously. So it had been over 4 years or 3 years since Pitt last lost a home game. So that was impressive stuff by Louisville. I even also said it on the Set Point Twitter that makes the victory even more sweeter, because honestly, it's just amazing. Like, to go on the road after getting swept 2 nights ago, you go on the road and you get the dub against a talented Pitt team. It was very impressive, and I couldn't believe it. But honestly, I do believe, I am 100% certain I called Pitt and Louisville splitting their matchups. So looking at the statistics, looking at Louisville's statistics, they were led by Anna DeBeer, who had 22 kills, only 5 hitting errors, and 43 attempts for a hitting percentage of .395. Those right there are impressive. And I'm almost certain Anna DeBeer is a freshman, and she's a darn good freshman at that, honestly. Like honestly, I think that's one of the more impressive matchups from her, and she definitely deserved the ACC Freshman of the Week. So, because if you're posting numbers like that, you are doing something good. Also, Anna DeBeer chipped in actually, she only chipped in 1 dig, which is kind of surprising. Oh well. In terms of kills, they also got 13 kills from Anna Stevenson. Only 5 kills from Aiko Jones. I don't know what was going on there. Maybe she got hurt. I didn't see this matchup, so... and then Amaya Tillman had 8 kills. In terms of assists, they were led by Tori Dilfer, who had 47 assists. In terms of digs, they were led by Alexis Hamilton, who had 11 digs. Claire Chowsey had 9 digs. And Tori Dilfer had 4 digs. And surprisingly, Louisville only had 43 digs as a team. You're going to see I use the word surprisingly loosely as you're about to see what Pitt's dig total was. So as for Pitt, in the losing effort, they were led by Kayla Lund, who had 19 kills, 9 hitting errors, and 49 attempts for a hitting percentage of .204. That's okay. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. You want to see her have better numbers than that. Then Pitt was also led by Chinaza Day, who had 17 kills, 5 hitting errors, and 32 attempts for a hitting percentage of .375. Good stuff right there. I think Day really picked up the slack when Kayla Lund was struggling. And Valeria Vasquez Gomez, who has been a really good 3 option for Pitt, had 9 kills, only 3 hitting errors, and 21 attempts for a hitting percentage of .286. Solid numbers on the night. In terms of assists, they actually just they actually just had a 5-1 offense, as Alexis Akio had 41 assists. Kylie Levers had only 5 assists, which is kind of surprising. A lot of assists going all over the places. Kayla Lund had 3 assists. Mariha Popovich had 3 assists. But I digress on that. In terms of digs, they were led by Mariha Popovich, who had 18 digs. She is the senior libero. Kayla Lund had 13 digs. Alexis Akio had 11 digs. Valeria Vasquez Gomez had 10 digs. As a team, Pitt had 62. And remember when I said Louisville had 43 digs? Pitt outdug Louisville 62-43. Yet, Pitt lost. I'm just going to say it right now. How do you have those numbers, but you don't beat Louisville? I mean, I guess that's a little more justifiable, but still. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, you would think with 63 digs and outdigging the other team, Pitt would win, but I don't know. The statistic that also stands out to me yet again are the blocks. 13 blocks for Louisville, 8.5 blocks for Pitt. That to me, okay. That's where things are looking a little more normal, as Louisville had more blocks than Pitt again, and then they actually won. They won the points that mattered most, which was late in the first set, in the second set, and in the third set. So, good stuff right there on Louisville's part. And I still can't believe Pitt had won 37 games coming into that, or 37 straight home games coming into that game. So, that's even more impressive that Louisville got the win. So, hats off to Louisville. And Pitt ends their fall season at 4-4. Louisville ends their fall season at 5-2, and Notre Dame ends their fall season at 6-1 as they beat Boston College twice this past weekend. That's not any surprise though, just because Boston College isn't good. And Notre Dame is very talented. They actually got the services of Charlie Niego back after she missed the Pitt series last weekend, a couple weeks ago. So overall, Notre Dame. My takeaway from Notre Dame, Louisville, and Pitt is that all three teams are talented. Notre Dame is still young, but they're proving that they can hang with anybody, and they're not to be taken lightly. Whether we get an ACC Part 2, or no matter who Notre Dame plays, I can see Notre Dame just being a powerhouse. And who knows, maybe they can have a deep NCAA playoff run. Remember, the field is 48 teams as opposed to 64 the previous year. So remember, the NCAA shortened that. My only concern is for Notre Dame is, how are they going to factor the ACC champions? Like, are they just going to continue ACC play next year, or are they just going to have like a tournament? Or I don't know. It's just food for thought on my part. And also, I really hate that we don't get Notre Dame at Louisville Part 2. Everyone else is making up their games. Virginia's making up its games against Duke and North Carolina. Matter of fact, Virginia is playing 3 games in 3 nights. They're going at Duke, then at North Carolina, then at North Carolina again. They are going to be ragged as heck. And I'm going to be getting into that a little bit later. But honestly, I would really like Notre Dame Louisville Part 2, but maybe we may have to wait till next year. So overall, my takeaway on Pitt personally is I think Pitt, I gotta give it up to Pitt. They had themselves the worst start to the season ever, losing their first 2 games at Syracuse, which nobody anticipated. Absolutely nobody. Not even Keith Sweat. He said, "Nobody." If y'all get that reference, good for you, but I digress. But anyway, Pitt started off 0-2, losing on the road, and then they beat Boston College. Then they lost a heartbreaker to Notre Dame in 5 after leading 2-0. Then they beat Notre Dame on the road a couple days after, and then they split their matchup against Louisville. So overall, I think Pitt is still a good team going into January. I think this is a team that can still do some damage in the up-and-coming winter/spring season. And then Louisville, to me, I think proved themselves somewhat against Pitt. Winning at Pitt was something I never thought they would do in a million years. But I think that was impressive. I really was impressed about that. So good stuff for those 3. Georgia Tech also impressed me this fall season as well. They only dropped 6 sets. 5 of them were to Miami in the span of 2 matches, and then the other one came against Clemson, which Clemson had nothing but pride to fight for, especially since they weren't winning the ACC South. But the ACC South was just so unbalanced. Like, poor Florida State. Like, to me, Florida State got the worst bit of it because they only got to play 4 games. 1 against Miami, 2 against Miami, in which they split, and then 2 against Georgia Tech, which they got the doors blown off. So I really do feel bad for Florida State because I think Florida State has a solid team. I think on paper they're solid. I just think that they deserve a chance to play. But unfortunately, due to COVID outbreaks, they unfortunately will not get that chance. So, sorry, Pitt. Or, I'm sorry, not Pitt. Sorry, Florida State. But hopefully we will be seeing them in the winter/spring. I definitely look forward to seeing them and seeing how they can perform. I think they can do some damage. I think they can be a sneaky good team. But Georgia Tech is kind of the class of the ACC South. But Miami also was good as well. I think Miami was very impressive this year. They have themselves a good foundation and a good culture. And they have a good freshman class as well. And in the future, this Miami team is going to be something special. So I hope I'm right, but we'll see. So, and the only 2 so the ACC North is done. The ACC South has just 2 matchups left between Clemson and Wake Forest. Both are pretty much near the bottom of the barrel of the ACC South, which, well, that's not really noteworthy because Well, they're just not. It's just not really stand outish. Like if Clemson wins, cool, but if they don't, then nobody really cares. One matchup that did happen last weekend that was also in the ACC was Virginia Tech and Duke, and this was played at Duke. So I'm just going to try to breeze through this as quickly as possible. So Virginia Tech won the first set 25-17. Then they won the second set 25-19. And suddenly Virginia Tech was just up 2-0. Like the first set had only 3 ties and 2 lead changes, and then Virginia Tech led all the way and never relinquished it. There was only 1 tie in set number 2. Set 3 was a different story, as that featured 8 ties and 4 lead changes. But Duke woke up and took set number 3, 25-16. Then in set 4, there were 6 ties but only 1 lead change, and Duke was just on its A game, taking set 4, 25-20, and suddenly the match had to go 5, and then Virginia Tech jumped out to an early lead. They kept the lead until Duke made one last push at the Hokies, but in the end, the Blue Devils fell short as Virginia Tech took set 5, 15-13. There was only 3 ties and 1 lead change, so set 5 was a little more one-sided than it needed to be, but I admire the courage from Duke of trying to snag victory from the jaws of defeat. Leading Virginia Tech in the win was Marissa Sergio, who had 18 kills, only 1 hitting error, and a hitting percentage of 30, a hitting attempt of 34 attempts for a hitting percentage of 500. Again, 34 attempts, 18 of them were kills, and 1 hitting error for a hitting percentage of 500. That's 50% right there. That right there is pretty darn impressive. Also, Katie Smith had 17 kills, 6 hitting errors, and 36 attempts for a hitting percentage of 306. That's pretty good. Again, hitting over 300 is very solid in my book. And then Angel Robinson had 8 kills, no hitting errors, 14 attempts for a hitting percentage of 571. Also good stuff. In terms of assists, Virginia Tech ran their 6-2 offense. They were led by Talon Jackson, who had 25 assists, while Brie Postema had 20 assists, which is good, of course. Then in terms of digs, Smith led the team in digs with 16, along with Sarah Powell, who had 16 digs. Ashley Homan had 10 digs to add with her 9 kills, nearing the double-double. And in terms of blocks, this team didn't get the full total of blocks, but they had 14 block assists, 1 solo block, which is good stuff, and they had 5 service aces, which is really good. So, in terms of hitting percentage, Virginia Tech had a hitting percentage of 289, which again, it's good stuff right there. So as for Duke had a balanced attack. They were led by Gracie Johnson, who had 15 kills, 6 hitting errors, 41 attempts for a hitting percentage of 220. They also had Lily Cooper leading the team second in kills with 14 kills, 4 errors, and 22 attempts for a hitting percentage of 455. That's pretty good right there. Lizzie Fleming also had a hitting percentage of 455 as she had 12 kills, 2 errors, and 22 attempts. Peyton Schwantz had 10 kills, 6 hitting errors, 28 attempts for a hitting percentage of 143. And then Ade Owokonrian had 9 kills, 6 hitting errors, and 27 attempts for a hitting percentage of 111. So the Duke kill leaders were very balanced, which is very impressive. Just like Virginia Tech, Duke ran a 6-2 offense with 2 setters, as Alex Springate had 27 assists while Sydney Yap had 20 assists. In terms of digs, they were led by Peyton Schwantz and Mackenzie Cole, who each had 14 digs, and Alex Springate had 9 digs, which is good stuff as well, giving her a near double-double. Schwantz had the double-double with 10 kills and 14 digs. In terms of blocks, they had 0 solo blocks, but they had 12 block assists, so that's some good stuff. And they had a hitting percentage of 241. So overall, this was a pretty good matchup. It was a sneaky good matchup, and that put Virginia Tech in the driver's seat of the ACC Central. All Virginia Tech needed to do was win one more matchup, and then they'd be pretty much heading for the checkered flag for the ACC Central. So as for their second matchup between Virginia Tech and Duke, Duke took the first set 25-21, and then the turning point was as there were 12 ties and 3 lead changes. The second set was probably the turning point for Duke, as there were 16 ties and 11 lead changes, as they took set 2 26-24. That was a huge momentum shifter for Duke, as that gave them confidence going into set number 3. Set 3 was also close. However, Virginia Tech took that third set 25-23, and there was only 1 tie and 0 lead changes. But then the fourth set came. Virginia Tech had poked the bear, or in this case the Blue Devil, as there was only 3 ties and 1 lead change, as Duke took set number 4, 25-17, and the match. And just like that, Duke is now in first place in the ACC Central with just 1 match to go for them. Virginia Tech and North Carolina, to note, have 2 matches remaining this week, which I'll be getting into later on the show. So, in terms of Duke's stats, again, it was another balanced attack, as they were led by Aid Olwokonrian, who had 18 kills, 4 hitting errors, and 39 attempts for a hitting percentage of .359. Good numbers right there. Peyton Schwantz had 13 kills, 5 hitting errors, 31 attempts for a hitting percentage of .258. And then Gracie Johnson and Lily Cooper each had 10 kills. Johnson didn't have too good of a hitting percentage with only a hitting percentage of 75, while Cooper had a hitting percentage of .286, which is good. In terms of assists, once again, the 6-2 offense did their thing, as Alex Springate had 30 assists, while Sidney Yap had 21 assists. In terms of digs, they were led by Peyton Schwantz, who had 19 digs. Mackenzie Cole had 16 digs, and Sidney Yap had 12 digs to give her double-double, along with Peyton Schwantz's double-double. In terms of blocks, this team, Duke had 18 block assists, 14 blocks, and that's some good numbers right there. They had a hitting percentage of only .213, but it didn't matter, and they had 5 service aces, but you'll see Virginia Tech's numbers in terms of the hitting percentage. So Virginia Tech also had a balanced attack, as they were led by Ashley Homan, who had 13 kills, 5 hitting errors, 42 attempts for a hitting percentage of .190. Marissa Serchio had 12 kills, 4 hitting errors, and 32 attempts for a hitting percentage of .250. And Katie Smith, she had 11 kills, 10 hitting errors, and 40 attempts for only a hitting percentage of 25. Yikes. Not the night she was hoping for. In terms of assists, she was led by Virginia Tech was led by Talon Jackson, who had 23 assists, while Bree Postuma had 17 assists. In terms of digs, they were led by Logan Mosley, who had 23 digs, while Katie Smith had 10 digs. So those are their only double-digit diggers. In terms of digs overall, Duke outdug Virginia Tech 74-63, which that's pretty much going to spell your doom for the most part. In terms of blocks, Virginia Tech had 20 block assists while they had 1 solo block. So in other words, they had 11 blocks altogether, and Duke had 13 blocks, because a block assist is worth half of a block. So you pretty much divide that number by 2, and then you add that number with the solo blocks, and then poof, you get your overall block total. And then Virginia Tech only had 2 service aces. They had 5 service errors. Duke had 6 service errors and 5 service aces. So that's some good stuff right there. Those were kind of the only noteworthy matches. As in terms of the ACC Central, Duke leads the division or the region by a half a game, as they're 5-2. Virginia Tech and North Carolina are both 4-2. As I said, they both have 2 games remaining this week. And I'll be going over some of the matchups for this week. But first, let's actually take ourselves a commercial break. Before we go into our commercials, I just want to give a quick shout out to iSports Radio's official sponsor, as as iSports Radio is officially sponsored by Another App Co. And Another App Co. is an app company based in Corona that creates a lot of great apps, such as the BS Meter, the Beatbox app, Facefly, and Meme Me. And they create all sorts of apps that they love and share them with the world. Once again, that's Another App Company. You could check them out at www.anotherappcompany.com or just follow them at Another App Co. And you could also check out Another App Co. on the Google App Store. Unfortunately, none of the Another App Co. apps are available for Apple apps, but it will be coming soon. So once again, that's Another App Co. And they create a lot of fun, amazing apps, and hopefully they will get to Apple soon. But once again, Another App Co., the official sponsor of iSports Radio. Now let's head into our commercial breaks. We'll be right back after this.
Lay down music.
Hey, what's up, BS3 sports fans? If you love listening to the BS3 Sports Show, check out the weekend wrap-up every Monday at 12:15 Central Time, 1:15 Eastern, recapping the weekend in sports like you never heard it before. Comedy, interactive chat room, it's a must-listen. Weekend wrap-up on Spreaker.com, part of the X Squad. Check it out. You won't be disappointed.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
Drivers, start your engines. Auto racing takes many forms, from the close quarter contact of NASCAR
to the high-speed, high-risk atmosphere of IndyCar,
all the way to the pinnacle of technology with the Formula One World Championship.
No matter if you prefer the high banks of Daytona,
the concrete canyons of Long Beach,
or the flowing curves of the Nürburgring.
The international language of motorsports is simple. Go fast,
run hard,
and come home first.
So join us, myself, Darrell Kinsey Jr.,
Lolita Camello,
and Michael Ward,
on a world tour of all the best motorsports has to offer on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, only on your home for all. That is sports. IE Sports Radio.
college basketball fans out there, tired of hearing about just the dramatic stuff in the basketball world, tired of hearing about what such and such reward tonight, and not about the game? Hey, leave all of that alone. Because on Wednesday nights, I got this show called Fast Break with Phil Jones here on the IE Sports Radio. And all we talk about is straight basketball, from where it comes down to the NBA, the NCAA, and even the WNBA. I don't discriminate. I give all my NBA, my basketball, whatever you want with sports, to the slam dunks, to the three-pointers, to the teardrops, to the game winners. I'm there. I'm speaking about it. I have a debate. I have my panel. I got a squad that rolls in. And we're going to be talking mad sports. We're going to be talking about the Lakers. We're going to be talking about even the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to be talking about who's the top team out there in the NBA. So, tired of all the drama. Tired of all the... What did he wear today? What kind of shoes he had? Forget all that. Just come over. Fast Break with Phil Jones here on IE Sports Radio every Wednesday night, 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, y'all. So, yo, tune in.
And we are back with Set Point. You can catch all those shows on IE Sports Radio, such as Fast Break, hosted by Davidson Crooks and Dentarius Locke, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch The Defining Moment on IE Sports Radio, hosted by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Larry B. You can also catch The Extra Mile every Thursday, hosted by Daryl Kinsey Jr., Michael Ward, and Christopher Lemon. That talks about motorsports, and they do a really great job of talking about motorsports. Like, even I'm listening to it, and I'm not the biggest fan of motorsports. So that's some great shows going on. You can also catch BS3 Radio, Ben Suttereth, on his little platform. Like, he has his little platforms such as shows like the Weekend Wrap-Up Show, Late Night with BS3, Eagles versus Everybody, The Real Deal with Courtney Harden, and Ben Sutterth does a great job with BS3 Sports, and they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary. So we got some great stuff. We have some great brother stations and all that. So now, A for the delay, let's go into segment 2. So let's talk about before I go on to this week's matchups, noteworthy matchups, I actually do need to talk about another performance from last week. So this came from Arkansas State against Louisville. So Louisiana. Louisiana beat Arkansas State 2 times out of 3 last week. But in the one match that Arkansas State won against, Madison Brown had 34 kills and had a hitting percentage of .338. That is some good stuff. And the best part was, Arkansas State won that match in 4 sets. Imagine if that had gone 5. Basically, Madison Brown of Arkansas State put up Madden numbers. Those are Madden numbers right there, everybody. So she was definitely a big-time performer for Louisiana. And that was some great stuff right there. And it was just a great overall feeling for Arkansas State. And that's a big upset because beating Louisiana has been good for the most part this year. Their only true loss was against Texas State, which Texas State was clearly the better team. Another big-time performance was Hattie Monson of Notre Dame, who had a double-double for the Fighting Irish as Notre Dame beat Boston College in 4 sets. And the future looks bright for the Fighting Irish, especially with her. Like, she's done a great job at the libero position, and she wasn't even slated to be the starting libero. But then she came on the radar, and she proved everyone correct. So that's some good stuff. And I definitely want to give a shout in the chat room to Adam Karnick saying, hey, let's volley. And a big shout to Davidson Crooks. Thank you, too, for joining me. big shout out to Adam Karnick, who allowed me to be on his show yesterday, Chi-Town Weekly. Yesterday we talked about the LA Rams and the Chicago Bears' Monday Night Football, while Davidson Crooks, on the other hand, along with Dentarius Locke, talk about the NBA with Fast Break. So they have some good content right there, and they're both really cool people and really great hosts. So definitely do check them out on IE Sports Radio. Adam Karnick goes on live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, and 7 p.m. Eastern, while Davidson Crooks and Dentarius Locke go live with Fast Break every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So definitely do check them out. All right, now let's get into some big-time volleyball matchups for this week. So I'm glad Davidson Crooks is in the chat room because I know he's an SEC guy. So unfortunately, I won't be talking about Alabama, but I do have the big time matchup from the SEC, and I also gotta give a shout out to Andrew Hagenbaugh, who just popped in the chat room. Thanks for tuning in, my brother. I definitely appreciate it. So the big time matchup, the matchup of the week this week, is the University of Kentucky versus Missouri. The University of Missouri, the number 3 team in the AVCA polls against the number 7 team. And this is a big-time ACC match as both these teams are 2-0 as they'll be facing one another in SEC play. And did I say ACC? I meant SEC. So my bad, y'all. So SEC play. So Kentucky and Missouri, not too much is separating these two teams, as Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, beat Kentucky last year. And also gotta give a shout out to Pierre Moss. I praised Notre Dame and how they did last week and how they did overall in the fall. So that's some good stuff. And thank you to Andrew for saying always have to tune in, even if it means hiding at work. Facts, Andrew. That's what I used to do when I worked at Pavilions this summer. So anyway, Kentucky versus Missouri. These are two of the more powerhouse teams in the SEC. You also have your Florida, but unfortunately Florida is not going to play Missouri or Kentucky because of the shortened SEC season, which really sucks because I really want every team to be facing one another. Like, Florida to me has one of the more bypassable schedules, as well as the Texas A&M, which has another cupcake-like schedule. So yeah, so Adam Karnick says, work is forever, set point is only an hour a week. Facts, Adam. So, in terms of University of Kentucky, they are led by Avery Skinner, who has 33 kills, while Allie Stumler has 22 kills. Azana Teeler and Reagan Rutherford each have 16 kills, while Elise Goetzinger has 14 kills. I also need to make note that Maddie Skinner, the younger sister of Avery Skinner, is also on University of Kentucky, which is some good stuff. Like, I didn't even know that. And Madison Lilly is the setter who has 90 assists. Kentucky only runs a 5-1. They don't run a 6-2 like Pitt does or all those other teams with 2 setters do. In terms of digs, they are led by Madison Lilly, the setter, who has 26 digs, while Gabby Curry has 25 digs. Allie Stumler has 18 digs, and Lauren Tharp has 13 digs. As a team, this team is hitting .347 while holding their opponents to .130. However, Kentucky's only opponent has been Tennessee, which they kind of didn't really struggle too much against. As in the second match, Kentucky struggled a little bit more with Tennessee because Tennessee is just. I'm not going to bash them too much, but Tennessee isn't really the greatest volleyball school in the SEC. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's better teams than them, but I digress on that. Kentucky is just a dominant team. There's a reason why they are the number 3 team. They've been the number 3 team since I think the AVCA coaches poll came out. So it's some good stuff right there on Kentucky's part. So as for Missouri, they were coming off of beating Alabama twice last week. They beat Alabama in 4 sets, and then they also beat Alabama in 3 sets. So Missouri is led by Kylie DeBerg, who has 31 kills. Anna Dixon has 20 kills. Tayana Omazic has 14 kills. Kenna Sauer has 15 kills. In terms of assists, they are led by Andrea Fuentes, who has 73 assists. And just like Kentucky, Missouri only runs a 5-1 offense instead of a 6-2 offense with two setters. In terms of digs, they are led by Emily Brown, who has 14 digs, while Fuentes has 16 digs, DeBerg has 15 digs, and Leketor member Mene has 11 digs. So as a team, this team is Missouri is hitting 323, while the opponents are hitting 205. But again, they've only played Alabama, so a lot of those stats aren't really overly high. However, it's gonna get high as the season progresses. So this is a battle of two talented teams. Kentucky coming off of its bye week, while Missouri coming off of a solid pair of victories over Alabama. Keep in mind that it was at Alabama, so Missouri will have the honor of will be playing at home, and Missouri is actually the number 9th ranked team, but still, that's two top 10 teams. And this is going to make for a great showdown between these two talented teams. Honestly, it's so early in the season, it's like you can't really predict a clear-cut winner. I pretty much have to go safe and say that both of these teams are going to split their series, as both these teams are talented. But to me, I think Kentucky is slightly more talented, but they're going to be forced out of their comfort zone, and they're going to play on the road against Missouri. And to me, I think the Tigers can give them a little bit of a challenge at home, just because I think they have what it takes. But to me, Kentucky is just a whole lot talented. But I pretty much see a split coming between these two teams. If they had played a little bit later in the season, I kind of would probably be saying I kind of would have a better idea of what to expect. All I can tell you is that Kentucky kind of struggled with Tennessee, and then Missouri also had a little bit of ways on the road against Bama. But I will say this, Kentucky and Mizzo are both two talented teams, and I just think that it's going to be a great match. So I hope both of their matches go 5. I just hope it's not too overtaxing for the players. And the worst part about this Missouri and Kentucky matchup is that after this, they're not going to. Both these teams aren't going to really see too much competition. As after Kentucky plays Missouri, they play Auburn at home, and then they play at Mississippi State in a couple more weeks after this week. And then Missouri plays Arkansas next week, and then they don't have another. And then they have another bye, and then a bye and a half, and then they play Ole Miss. They play at Ole Miss. It's all because the SEC format is basically going to be eight games, which nothing is guaranteed when it comes to these 8 games, which really sucks. I really would like to see some of these other teams face one another. I want to see Texas A&M actually play a team that could kind of push their limit. Like Texas A&M did get pushed against Ole Miss, as they had to beat Ole Miss in 4 sets both times, and then LSU pushed them to 5. But for the remainder of Texas A&M's schedule, they're not playing anyone special. But that's for another day. Right now, Kentucky and Missouri are going to give us a great matchup. I think both these teams are going to win one match against one another. So I hope that's the case. It's just it would really suck to see one team just sweep the series, or just complete sweep them by not dropping a set. So that's just kind of my little thing, but I digress on that. So overall, I think that is my little take on Kentucky. It's just two talented teams facing one another, and two SEC rivals, and it's gonna make for a great match. So I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to see what the Skinner girls have to offer. So Maddie Skinner and Avery Skinner are doing their thing. I think someone did an article, a little mini article on the Kentucky Wildcats website on the younger Skinner. So that's some good stuff right there. Yes, very good indeed. So anyway, As for our next matchup, their next noteworthy matchup is Virginia Tech at NC State. Now, NC State hasn't really had the best record. They're 2-4, but the reason why this matchup is noteworthy is because this could be Virginia Tech's chance at winning the ACC Central. So here's how the ACC Central works. Duke is 5-2, and they play Virginia this week. I can pretty much see Virginia is dead last in that regional division or regional conference. So unfortunately for Virginia, I can see Duke sweeping them. And then North Carolina plays Virginia twice. So I can see North Carolina sweeping Virginia or beating Virginia both times. So that leaves just Virginia Tech and Duke, or Virginia Tech and North Carolina. So Virginia Tech had themselves a great weekend last week, a solid weekend actually. They beat Duke on the road in 5 sets, but then they lost to Duke in 4 sets 2 days after, which is a bummer, but that's okay. So in terms of Virginia Tech, they are led by Katie Smith, who cracked the century mark in terms of kills, as she has 100 kills, while Marissa Cerchio has 96 kills. Ashley Homan has 77 kills, while Angel Robinson has 40 kills. In terms of assists, their 6-2 offense is up and running, with Talon Jackson totaling 158 assists, while Bree Postuma has 137 assists. While in terms of service aces, they're led by Postuma, who has 14 service aces, which is pretty good. In terms of digs, they are led by Logan Mosley, who has 107 digs. Ashley Homan has 65 digs. Katie Smith has 76 digs, and Talon Jackson has 47 digs. As a team, Virginia Tech is hitting .222 while holding their opponents to only .185, which is pretty impressive. I really am impressed. Considering Virginia Tech had a COVID outbreak earlier in the season and all that they've been through, I'm quite impressed with how Virginia Tech has turned it around. And Virginia Tech was slated to finish dead last in the ACC. There wasn't a whole lot of hope for Virginia Tech, and then that first weekend against North Carolina where they split their matchups gave them hope. And despite COVID-19 being a thing, being an outbreak on their campus, they managed to win their next 3 of their next 4 matchups against Virginia, and then they split their matchups against Duke, and they could be 2 wins away from a possible ACC regional conference championship. And before I continue, I just gotta say give it a shout to Marcus Losgreat for jumping in the chat room. Thank you for joining me in the chat room, buddy. In about 1 hour, we will be hearing Marcus Losgreat give you what you want, what you need, and he's going to be coming at you straight from your mama's basement with a crispy whatever t-shirt he's wearing. He could be wearing a crispy white tee, or he could be wearing a crispy iSports Radio tee. So you'll have to find out in 1 hour when Gloves Off comes on. So as for NC State, a team that I have not gone over this year, NC State is led by Jade Parchment, who leads the team in kills with 87. Melissa Evans has 72, or Jade Parchment has 87 kills. Melissa Evans has 72 kills. Lydia Adam has 43 kills. And Pam Chukwu has 33 kills. That's a tough name to pronounce, honestly. So, unlike Virginia Tech, Duke runs a 5-1 offense, as their setter, Kristen McDaniel, leads the team in assists with 247. So, a lot of good stuff right there. And in terms of digs, they are led by Kaylee Frazier, who has 88 digs. McDaniel has 78 digs, while Evans has 51 digs, and Parchment has 46 digs. In terms of hitting percentage, they're only hitting 161, while their opponent's hitting 180. However, a majority of those opponents have been tough. You gotta give NC State somewhat of a break, because they face Duke, and then they face North Carolina, and then Virginia Tech, and now they're facing Virginia Tech, but their only 2 wins are against Virginia, which is at the bottom of the barrel. But But the fact that NC State has got some wins underneath their belt is pretty impressive. So that's some good stuff for North Carolina. In terms of service aces, they only have 26 service aces. They are led in that department by Melissa Evans and Riley Shack, who each have 6 service aces. And as a team, they have a whopping 69 service errors, which isn't good. So they got to clean that up. So here's the thing about Virginia Tech. So here are some scenarios in the ACC Central. If Duke and North Carolina win out, then in order for Virginia Tech to somehow win the ACC Central region, they have to win out their games. But if that happens, then Virginia Tech, Duke, and North Carolina each win the ACC Central region, which I don't know how they're going to do that, because the ACC already divided the conference as it is, and now they're going to have to share an ACC Regional Conference Championship. So if all three of those teams win out, then basically they have to share a Regional Conference Championship, which I don't know how they're going to do that, because remember, there's still plenty more volleyball on the women's side. It's just that December is going to take themselves. When it comes to the month of December, women's volleyball is going to take a break, and then when it comes to January of, I think, the 22nd, NCAA women's volleyball is going to resume, and then it's going to go straight until the month of April. So there's that, but for now, it's kind of Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is not in control of its destiny. Theoretically they are, but they still have something to prove. They obviously beat North Carolina once, and they beat Duke once. Now they got to go on the road again and beat a somewhat talented or somewhat up and rising NC State. To me, I think Virginia Tech has the talent to beat NC State. But Virginia Tech just can't get a big head off of its big 5-set win over Duke. Funny thing is that when it comes to Virginia Tech's win over Duke, Duke was actually ranked in the AVCA top 15, as that was Virginia Tech's first ever ranked win against an opponent, which I don't know. I kind of feel that that's kind of an underwhelming. I feel Virginia Tech's top 15 win was kind of underwhelming. I think it's a good win, especially since they have a new head coach. But to me, it's just Duke. I kind of figured they'd beat Duke at least once. But personally, I think Virginia Tech is so much better than NC State. NC State only got those 2 wins just because Virginia is kind of at the bottom of the barrel in terms of the ACC Central region. So overall, I think that this Virginia Tech team can definitely win their region, or at least clinch a share of it, because Duke and North Carolina aren't leaving anything to chance when playing Virginia. So honestly, I really think that Virginia Tech has control over their future. Over their future in terms of the ACC Central. I see Virginia Tech winning their first matchup in 4 sets and then winning their second match in 5 sets. I think it's gonna be a dramatic matchup. NC State is gonna want to play spoiler. Virginia Tech has the toughest matchup of Duke, North Carolina, and themselves. So Virginia Tech can't underestimate NC State, honestly. So to me, I think Virginia Tech's going to win both their matchups, and we're going to get a 3-way tie in a regional conference division. So I'm glad we're going to see some sort of drama in the NCAA women's volleyball season. Again, I just don't like how the ACC was really structured in terms of location and region, but at the same time, I think it's creative just for travel purposes. Like, the ACC South is based on Clemson, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and Wake Forest, while the ACC North is based off of Pitt, Louisville, Notre Dame, which is in South Bend, Indianapolis, Boston College, and Syracuse, which is in New York. And then the ACC Central is based off of Duke and North Carolina, which are in North Carolina, Virginia and Virginia Tech, the Virginia schools, and then NC State, which is in North Carolina. So, to me, I think the ACC has flaws with their regional plan, but I think it's good. I think it's a start. Like, you can only do so much because of COVID. So, but overall, back to my little prediction, my little spiel of NC State and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's going to win both their matchups. I could see Virginia Tech clinching a share of the ACC Central title, and I could see North Carolina also taking. I see them not getting swept. I see NC State not getting swept by Virginia Tech. Like, if Virginia Tech does sweep NC State, then I gotta give them an applause, but not right now. So that's my little take. That's my little preview on the matchup between NC State and Duke. We have a couple more matchups to go, and then I'll send you all on your way. I know everyone's probably watching baseball and all that. So now let's jump to the Sunbelt Conference, where we have ourselves a big-time showdown in the Sunbelt Conference West. Yes, the Sunbelt Conference is divided into two divisions, the Sunbelt West region and the Sunbelt East region, as I'll be right back at. Alright, I'm back. So now we have our next matchup between Texas State and UT Arlington. So Texas State is the top dog in the Sunbelt Conference West, as they only have lost one matchup. They're 9-0 going into their matchup against UT Arlington. UT Arlington has surprisingly exceeded expectations. And unfortunately for UT Arlington, they also had a COVID outbreak, but they resolved it, and they are back to playing volleyball. UT Arlington is 8-1 overall and 7-1 in conference. So this is some good stuff right there. This is some good stuff right here and there, and I definitely think that this UT Arlington can actually give Texas State a good matchup. So let's start with UT Arlington. They are led by Brooke Townsend, who has 118 kills, while Brianna Brown has 104 kills. Brianna Ford has 80 kills, and Devin Martinka has 51 kills. In terms of assists, UT Arlington runs a 6-2 offense, as they are led by Kylie Kapp, who has 177 assists, while Molly Blank has 167 assists. In terms of digs, they are led by Allie Wells, who has 224 digs, while Molly Blank and Brooke Townsend each have 84 kills. Kylie Kapp has 75 digs, and Brianna Ford has 60 digs. And did I say kills on Alyssa Duran and Kylie Kapp? I meant digs. And Molly Blank and Brooke Townsend each have 84 digs. So as a team, this team has a hitting percentage of, wait for it. It's not showing on my statistics. Either way, this UT Arlington team is pretty talented. Oh, here's their hitting percentage. It's .214, while their opponent's hitting percentage is .170. However, I don't really see a whole lot of standout victories for UT Arlington. I get they didn't have the preseason that Texas State had, but still, I think that UT Arlington still has a lot to prove, and to me, this is kind of their big test. And And this is their big moment. They have a lot to prove in this game. And again, Texas State is the top dog or top cat in this division, as they're 14-1 and 9-0 overall. They are led by, in the kill department, by Janelle Fitzgerald, who has 193 digs, while Tyra Renee Scott has 135 kills. Lauren Tesk has 105 kills, while Caitlin Butner has 97 kills. Jillian Slaughter has 86 kills. Kennedy Rutherford has 75 kills, and that's pretty much it. Their next kill leader has 48 kills, but I digress. Their assist leader is Emily DeWalt, who has 612 assists. They only run a 5-1 offense. They don't run a 6-2 offense with two setters, so there's that. In terms of digs are all over the place, as Kayla Granado has 227 digs. Emily DeWalt has 172 digs. Lauren Tesk has 119 digs. And Brooke Johnson has 89 digs. Kayla Tello has 87 digs. And that's pretty much that for the dig department, as Caitlin Butner has 72 digs, but I digress on that. In terms of hitting percentage, Texas State is hitting .260 for the season while holding their opponents to 151. Texas State's only blemish was a 4-set loss to UTEP. I couldn't believe that Texas State lost to UTEP. That's the only thing that's keeping Texas State undefeated, or that's the only thing that's preventing Texas State from being undefeated. Either way, this is going to be a great matchup between UT Arlington and Texas State. The Bobcats are finally going to get another challenge. Their previous challenge was against Louisiana, which they beat in 3 sets, 5 sets, and 3 sets. Because again, the format of the Sunbelt Conference is it's a 3-match series, as you play a doubleheader on Friday or Saturday or Thursday or whatever, and then you play one more match the day after. So it's kind of like baseball, except a little bit more complicated. It's like more games, but I guess they're trying to exterminate having to play 3-game series, 3 games in 3 days. But at the same time, 2 games in 3 days is, or 3 games in 2 days is kind of, but to each his own, I guess. But at least the Sunbelt Conference is actually using its brain. It's still keeping the whole West region and East region, and they're also having the Sunbelt Conference tournament. So that is some good stuff. Like, the Sunbelt Conference is using its noodle, unlike these other Power 5 conferences, except for the Big 12, which I'll be getting into in a little bit. But overall, I know these other conferences are smarter than that, but I digress. So my prediction for these two matchups. Okay, so honestly, I don't know. I think Texas State to me is the top cat. I don't see any way they're going to lose. UT Arlington is probably going to push them, but I think Texas State beats UT Arlington in all 3 matchups. The best part about this, however, is that UT Arlington and Texas State meet one another again. They meet each other twice in a couple more weeks, so that's going to be some fun times between those two teams. But overall, I think this is Texas State's time to shine, and I think Texas State's going to win all 3 matchups. I don't expect UT Arlington to make it easy because it's going to be on the road, and to me, I think that's going to be Texas State's biggest test. Can they win on the road? My answer to that is yes, but it's certainly not going to be easy, especially since this is a crosstown rivalry. So this is going to be an exciting Sun Belt Conference matchup. Unfortunately, I don't think any of these NCAA women's volleyball matches are going to get flexed to ESPN or ESPN2, unlike Notre Dame and Pitt, which I really would like to see more NCAA women's volleyball matches get flexed. Like, I think they deserve that, and I think it's good for the game. Like, I hate how Baylor and Texas aren't going to be on ESPN or ESPN2. I get they're having to compete with college football, but you can figure out something. And then if you have to move them to Thursday, they have to compete with Thursday Night Football, which, that's me rolling my eyes, by the way. And then also, if you move it to Friday, then they have to compete with some college football games, which really sucks. So, again, I would really like to see more NCAA women's volleyball matches in prime time. Like, this week's matchup should be prime time, but instead it's going to be... But instead, well, I mean, in theory, Kentucky and Missouri are on ESPNU, but I'd rather it be on ESPN2 or ESPN3. At least those two. Like, I just want some prime time. Like, it's just again, just food for thought on my part. Like, and then UT Arlington and Texas State are going to be on E+, which I guess that's good, but it's not overly good. By the way, just to clarify something, Texas State and UT Arlington are actually playing 2 matches, not 1, or not 3. So it's just going to be 1 match on Friday and then 1 match on Saturday on Halloween. And I still stand by what I said. I think Texas is still going to beat, or Texas State is going to beat UT Arlington. Texas State is a very good team. Everything in Texas is big, including their toughness. I just think Texas State's toughness is so much, or Texas State's talent is so much bigger than UT Arlington's. But that's not trying to be mean to UT Arlington, but I just don't see how this talented Texas State team is going to fall to a newcomer that hasn't really proved itself. You look at UT Arlington's wins, that they've beaten Little Rock. They've beaten Little Rock 3 times. They won 2 out of 3 against Arkansas State. Arkansas State seems to love to play spoiler, as Arkansas State actually plays Texas State next week, so that might be somewhat to watch. And then UT Arlington has beat UNL Monroe, which is dead last in the conference. So this is UT Arlington's big test. This is their moment to prove that they can beat Texas State and actually have a good chance at winning the Sunbelt Conference West region. But by the way, the Sunbelt Conference has always had the West region and East region, which is good. So I think, to me, the ACC kind of dropped the ball on that. Because, I mean, unless the ACC was going to have an ACC tournament, I think they should just try to do their best with the whole division instead of just separating it into regions. Like, instead of separating it into 3 different regions. At least have, like, an ACC tournament. Just my thing, though. But again, we're not talking about the ACC, we're talking about the Sunbelt Conference. So, Texas State's going to win both their matchups. I also got to say that Coastal Carolina has been a sneaky good team. Like, Coastal Carolina has not lost a game yet. They're 9-0, but they haven't really beaten anyone worth noting. As, according to the Sunbelt Sports website, Coastal Carolina is 8-0, but South Alabama is 7-3. So I'm presuming some of Coastal Carolina's games got postponed, which is really disappointing. Which I would like to see Coastal Carolina actually prove themselves. Like, Coastal Carolina now plays App State this weekend, and then next weekend they play Georgia Southern in a 3-game series. So there's that. So before I send you all on your way, we have one more matchup to go through. And this is actually my sneaky good matchup of the week. This is the underrated matchup of the week. And that is West Virginia at Baylor. West Virginia is knocking on the door when it comes to being ranked, while Baylor is the number 2 team in the AVCA polls. They're the number 2 team in the nation. So why is this a good match? Why is a team that's just barely borderline of making the top 15 a good matchup for Baylor? Let me tell you all something. Gather around, kids. Baylor has a big-time matchup next week at Texas. Here's the thing. According in the Big 12 race, Baylor is still in second place behind Texas. Kansas State and West Virginia are tied for third behind Baylor at 5-3. Let me tell you all this. Ever since that season opener against Kansas, Baylor has had some of their matchups go 5. Oh, they had to go 5 with Oklahoma. They had to go 5 with Texas Tech. It must have been a good feeling to play Iowa State and not go 5. West Virginia is not too far back of Baylor. So, to me, this could be a sneaky good matchup, and this could be very well a trap game for Baylor, because you don't want to look that far ahead to Texas, because let's all be honest, Texas and Baylor is pretty much going to decide who wins the Big 12, because whoever wins in the fall will automatically get the berth to the NCAA tournament in April. Like, I think they're just going to try to knock out the Big 12 conference right away. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're not going to do regions. They're not going to do shortened seasons. They're just going to do They're just going to have the Big 12 matchups right away, and they're not going to look back. So to me, the reason why this is a big time matchup, because West Virginia has the potential to beat Baylor. Baylor has proven that they are not invincible. Teams have come close to beating them, and Kansas beat them in the first match of the season. So honestly, this is a team that I think. So this is a Baylor team this West Virginia team is a team that Baylor cannot underestimate, and they cannot overlook their matchup. They cannot look too far ahead to Texas, because I know they really are looking forward to that matchup against Texas, but they need to focus at the matchup at hand. So as for Baylor, they are led by the one, the only, the reigning AVCA Player of the Year, Yasonia Presley, who has 158 kills. She also has 69 digs, which is pretty solid. Lauren Harrison is second on the team, is second on Baylor in kills with 91. Marquis Vandermark has 82 kills. Cara McGee, who was named the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, has 80 kills. And Lauren Harrison has 91 kills. In terms of assists, Callie Williams has 371 assists as she is the lone setter. Baylor does not use a 6-2 offense like Virginia Tech or Pitt or any of those other teams. Callie Williams it's also good to know that Callie Williams leads the team in service aces with 12, so that's some good stuff. In terms of digs, Baylor is led by Chanel Bramschreiber, who has 128 digs. Callie Williams has 95 digs. Emily Van Slate has 70 digs, and Yasonia Presley is next on the team in digs with 69. As a team, Baylor is hitting .290 and holding their opponents to a .149 hitting percentage. So, as for West Virginia, a team that I have not talked about this year, they are led by Natalie Petrova, who has 110 kills. Kristen Lux has 96 kills. Brianna Lynch has 89 kills. And Emmy Ogogor has 50 kills. Emmy Ogogor. In terms of assists, Lacey Zerwas has 363 assists. In terms of digs, they are led by Alexa Hastings, who has 138 digs. Natalie Petrova has 102 digs. Sky Stokes has 88 digs. And Lacey Zerwas has 58 digs. And then also Lindsay Proctor has 70 digs. In terms of hitting percentage, this team is hitting .191 on the season while they're allowing their opponents to hit .229. That is an alarming stat right there. That right there is concerning for West Virginia. And honestly, I don't know, man. Like, I don't see how... I definitely can see West Virginia beating... at least giving Baylor a good matchup, but West Virginia can't even beat Kansas State. And Kansas State is pretty good as well. Like, Kansas State actually has the same record as West Virginia. The problem is Kansas State's two of Kansas State's 3 losses came against number 1 Texas. And the other loss to Kansas State came against Iowa State, which I'm pretty sure they weren't planning on losing that. So I definitely see West Virginia giving Baylor a battle, but Baylor is going to win both these matchups, but I think this is a sneaky good matchup just because Baylor cannot afford to lose another match. If Baylor loses another match, they are in deep doo-doo when they face Texas, because if they can't beat West Virginia, if they lose to West Virginia once, they're for sure not even going to win one at Texas. Like, I wouldn't say, okay, I wouldn't go that far. I will say Texas is going to beat Baylor at least one time next week if Baylor loses to West Virginia this week. So that's just my thing. That's why it's a sneaky good matchup, just because Baylor is still in contention for the Big 12 title. However, their margin of error is very slim. They cannot lose another matchup, especially before, like, they just cannot lose. Like, at this point, Baylor just cannot lose any more matches. Like, if they lose another match, then they can't win the Big 12, and then Texas is going to win. Like, Baylor has to pretty much run the table and win, and then they'd win the Big 12. Texas, on the other hand, is undefeated, and here's the thing about Texas. Texas is 10-0, and they have a bye this week, so best believe they're going to be using that bye to maybe scout Baylor as they play West Virginia. And they're definitely going to use that bye to work on their errors, because despite Texas being the number one team in the nation, they still are not perfect. They've only dropped 3 sets all year, 2 of which were to Kansas State on the road, and then 1 of which was to Oklahoma on the road. So when it comes to playing at home, Texas has not dropped a set. Not dropped a set whatsoever. So that's why but before we can get to Baylor and Texas, Baylor has to get through West Virginia. But I already can tell you this: if Baylor loses one match to West Virginia, I don't see them winning the Big 12. They're not going to win the Big 12. They're not going to beat Texas, because if they can't beat West Virginia, they surely have no chance against the number one team in the nation on the road. And then also, I just don't think that Texas has any intention of losing to their rivals, because again, Texas is on a redeem tour. They are out for redemption after they lost in the round of 16 to Louisville. So expect Texas and Baylor to have fireworks this week, but expect Baylor to win both these matchups against West Virginia, because if they don't, they can kiss the Big 12 title goodbye. That's all that I've got for the West Virginia-Baylor matchup. I see Baylor winning, but I see West Virginia trying to get in the heads of Baylor and trying to play mind games and trying to force Baylor to look too far ahead to the future, and then eventually play checkers and chess with them, with West Virginia trying to play chess while forcing Baylor to play checkers. But I digress on that. And that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Set Point. I'm really excited for this week's matchups. I know it's kind of a quiet week this week in terms of ranked on ranked matchups, but honestly, we have some key matchups which could determine the fate of certain teams, like in the ACC Central, the Big 12, and then the Sunbelt Conference. The SEC is still in its early stages. Like, we're only in week 3 in the SEC, and not everyone has played a full 4 matches like Texas A&M has. But thank you all for joining me on Set Point here on IE Sports Radio. Big shout out to everyone in the chat room. Big shout out to Dave Friedman, who jumped in the chat room saying tell him. And I appreciate you doing that. Also, do check out Dave Friedman's show, the Kansas City Shuffle, hosted by him and Ryan the Pez Choir Davis. And maybe, who knows, maybe they'll be talking about some NCAA women's volleyball in the near future, as one of the host final sites in women's indoor volleyball will be Kansas City in 2025. So definitely do check out the Kansas City Shuffle every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's right before my show, so... And they also are good to Set Point. They pretty much just tell it like it is, and they also tell everyone to continue to watch Set Point, because Set Point is really good. So with that in mind, also do check out another AppCo which is based in Corona. Go to www.anotherappco.com, or if you have the Google apps, definitely do check them out through there. And also, if you have Android, then definitely do check out the apps that Another Appco has created. And then also do follow Another Appco on Twitter. You can also follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter at IE Sports Radio, and also follow them on Instagram, and like us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on Twitter. And also you can follow Setpoint on Twitter at set_point.ie. You can follow me on Twitter at Teran Rodriguez 1. And yeah, and I feel I've pretty much touched upon everything. And without any further delay, it is time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate so I could watch the World Series. You feel me? Thank you all for tuning in to Setpoint. If you're listening on the live stream, I appreciate it. If you're listening on the replay, I definitely appreciate it. Sorry if I started a little late, but better late than never, I guess. In less than a half hour, in about 25 minutes, you will be hearing Marcus Wilswick go live here on IE Sports Radio. Definitely do check him out, because he does a great job with the gloves on. And I'm starting to get some combat towards myself. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, and for everyone at Another App Company, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have a great rest of the evening, and I shall see you on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Good night, everybody.